Elden Ring is receiving DLC likely later this year in the form of Shadows of the Erdtree, a DLC compared to the Bloodborne DLC from back in the day. And to prepare myself and ready myself for this eventual release, I wanted to get another playthrough of Elden Ring under my belt. You see, when I first played the game, I went through the game with a lot of magic and summons, and I changed my build up a lot. I didn't like the boss design, but also, I think there was some part of me back then that just wasn't really in the mood for a really hard gameplay-focused experience. So I wanted to give it another bash. Because I enjoyed so many different aspects of Elden Ring, I wanted to enjoy the game fully. So I decided, you know what, before this DLC comes out, let's play the game entirely again. Let's do it largely on stream, let's go for no summons, and little to no use of actual magic. I'm gonna go for the Ronnie ending because, obviously, and I wanted it to culminate with getting my favorite weapon in the game, the Darkmoon Greatsword, which will require some intellect down the line, but we'll ignore that for now. But for most of this playthrough, I'm gonna use no summons and no magic. Just me, a giant sword, and the enemy fight. And I've already noticed some distinct aspects of the game and the overall gameplay loop that makes the game feel completely different to when I first played it. And I think that's one of Elden Ring's greatest strengths, and that is the boss design. Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive, or even counter to what I just said, where on my first playthrough, boss design on the whole was one of my greatest weaknesses when it came to the game. And we'll see how that shifts or pivots later down the line, but Margit the Fell Omen, as an introductory boss fight, solidified itself as one of my favorite fights, let alone introductory fights in the game. Now, why is that? Because I did enjoy that fight on my first playthrough. I think Margit the Fell Omen is a great microcosm of Elden Ring on the whole, and I think it fulfills this role as a first quote-unquote boss of the game better than any other first boss the series has had, in my opinion. And I think the reason Margit works so well is because of its placement. Sure, it may not technically be the first fight you encounter in the game, but it's like that first big story one that's required for progression. That first big jump in difficulty, that first big wall that you can reach and then choose, do you want to come back to this at a later point when you're more powerful and more well-versed in the game, or do you want to slap your hand on the table and get to work, get on that grind, and learn how this game plays, and then burn the boss down? Is that what you want to do? Because that's what I elected to end up doing in this playthrough. The only levels I had really accumulated up to this point were for Faith and Dexterity, and that's for the Tree Sentinel giant halberd weapon. So I really hadn't advanced myself as a character in Elden Ring much. I had like 1 point in Dex and maybe 1 point in Strength or something. That I can't count, actually had 2 points in Strength. Besides that, I got to work on Margit the Fell Omen, and he was a wall. He took about a fourth of my entire stream just to take him down. It took me over an hour, as I learned pretty much how to replay Elden Ring. And boss fights can be a tricky concept, and something that a lot of games end up failing on, in my opinion, or not utilizing to their maximum potential. And I think one of the reasons Elden Ring blew up as much as it did, and why FromSoft is so well known and well beloved as they are, is because they understand the concept of how to utilize a boss fight effectively to further the story, but also your own progression in the game. Sure, the game technically has tutorials, but they're really bare bones. Where you're gonna really learn how to play the game is in this fight, Margit the Fell Omen, because this is the check. This is the fight that says and tells you, the player, you are not going to get past this until you know how to counter what the game will throw at you. And you can counter what the game throws at you in any number of ways. In my first playthrough, as I'm showing you on the screen right now, if it's not already over with, I had a giant sword, I had summons, and those were the tools I elected on my first playthrough to be used to solve this puzzle, this giant question mark. That was how I chose to solve it back in the day. And later on, I would incorporate way more magic later down the line in that playthrough. For this playthrough, though, I had to learn how to overcome Margit the Fell Omen with just my sword and a roll in a dream. That was a self-imposed challenge I deliberately and directly imposed upon myself, because that's how I wanted to play this game. I wanted to get good. And beforehand, where I had a large buffer zone with a lot of levels and summons, I didn't have that here. I had to learn the timings. I had to learn every little mechanic and little sequence that Margit the Fell Omen can do, and I had to learn that dance the timings, the counters, the animations, how long do they last? Can I possibly cancel them? Because Margit the Fell Omen isn't tough for the sake of being tough. It's tough for the purpose and the express desire to teach you how to play the game. And for me, there's really 3 kinds of boss fights that are really enjoyable. The tutorials, the showcases, and the culminations. Now, what are these 3 types of fights? Because Elden Ring has all 3. The showcases are those big spectacles, where they may be challenging, they could be easy as all pie. They could be. They can be anywhere on that spectrum. But the main idea behind that fight is the visuals and the feel behind that fight are so cool. Think Radon later on, where he drops from a meteor out of the sky, and you're fighting on this giant hill, you can summon all your boys together. It's a big spectacle. It's a showcase. It's a tough fight, and can be a tough fight. But for me, the emphasis is more on the show. And there's nothing wrong with that. And those fights can be hard, they can be easy. You also have the culminations. Think the last boss in Elden Ring. A fight that kind of utilizes a lot of mechanics and concepts that you have accumulated throughout playing Elden Ring and says, okay, decision time. Think like Ishin from Sekiro. Okay, you have played this entire game, you're now on the last boss. Show us that you have understood what you've just played. All these mechanics, utilize them to maximize them to overcome this final titular challenge. These fights are largely relegated for the end or like the back half of the game. Elden Ring has fights like this. Sekiro is really well known for having fights like this, etc, etc. And then you have a fight like Margit the Fell Omen, the tutorial fight. A fight that's meant to teach you how this game works and how this game will flow in the future. A lot of the times, these tutorial fights are really hard. They don't have to be, but in the case of Margit the Fell Omen, if you have not played Elden Ring or you're trying a new build and have to tackle him in a new way, he can be excruciatingly hard. As you learn to slowly overcome these mechanics, you learn maybe 1 or 2 main key titular things about the gameplay design of the game, and you have to master them. And once you do, it'll make the rest of the game start to make sense and flow, and possibly even be perceived to be easier because you've now understood the main cornerstone mechanics of the game. That's what Margit the Fell Omen does. He teaches you about delayed attacks. He punishes you for when you go in to try and punish him, when ordinarily in a lot of other games and even previous games in FromSoft's discology, a lot of the times he may have a window and opportunity that you may think, hey, I can punish here, but you can't, because Margit can bust out the little dagger or sword or some combination and he just keeps going. You have to learn to adapt your playstyle and learn to identify and properly identify when in each combo you have a safe spot where you can either heal or punish the boss. For me, I was utilizing a really basic sword, and this sword has an art of war called a square off. It's essentially a giant uppercut with the sword, and it utilizes some FP to do so, but it's not magic really, just an art of war. This ability can hit a lot, but it can also do a lot of stagger. And if you hit the boss twice with it in rapid succession, you can get Margit the Fell Omen to stagger, and then you can really punish him with a big thrust to his midsection. That was what I identified because, well, someone from chat told me. But also, that was how I wanted to overcome this fight. I had my sword, okay, let's learn when to dodge, let's learn the animation window and timing for these various combos, and how I can utilize the tools I have at my disposal and that I want to use to overcome this fight. I had to learn when I can actually fit in those square offs without getting punished in return, because it's a long animation when Margit can really come at you quickly, and unexpectedly so. Margit the Fell Omen has become so well known and beloved because, well, he teaches you how to play the game. He is the you have to be this tall to enter sign for Elden Ring. You can go out and accumulate power and your own advantage in whatever way you want, whether it be magic or weapon arts or whatever. You can go grind the world available to you, the entire continent to the south if you want to go there, which is what I did my first playthrough. Here, I wanted to overcome Margit the Fell Omen. Now with a bunch of buffs, Now with a bunch of power that I've accumulated already, I wanted to overcome him with skill alone. And the reason Margit works so well as a tutorial fight is because he enables you to see this singular challenge and find or come up with any combination of tactics, power gains, or your own skill set that you can find up, that you can go out and search for or get better at to overcome that fight. If you want to do it purely under-leveled and without a bunch of power, you can do that. You have to learn the fight, but you can do that. And if you want to go get a bunch of buffer zones to come back and roll over him, you can do that as well. You want to call in cooperative play, you can do that as well. He doesn't care how you overcome that fight, the reward will be the same. The question is, what tools do you want to bring to get this job done? And that is a great microcosm of what Elden Ring is really all about at the end of the day. You can tackle it in any number of different ways with any number of different builds. The choice at the end of the day is what you want out of the experience and what you want to bring to the table. I can make an entire video about the progression of Elden Ring, and that video will almost certainly come later on, and all the different builds and stuff that you can go down, because it's really cool, and that's one of the aspects of Elden Ring that is really fun and enjoyable and replayable. Just how many different techniques and builds you can do, and how you are rewarded for playing the game and overcoming these challenges. But Margit the Fell Omen says, show me that you understand what this game is all about. He is the filter, and if you don't enjoy overcoming Margit the Fell Omen in whatever way you come up with, you probably won't enjoy Elden Ring, because Margit the Fell Omen is the tutorial for the game on the whole. He is the microcosm. He's Tutorial Island. He's that plateau from Breath of the Wild. He's that introductory experience in Witcher 3. He is what the game is all about, just on a smaller scale. He's not hard for the sake of being hard. He is a wall for you to overcome, for you to smash down, to go around, go through, go over, go under, build a door, build a window, build a doggy door if that's your thing, or whatever. He's a wall. You have to choose how to get to the other side of it. The game will let you go whatever route you want. All that matters is that you find a way through that wall, get to the other side. And personally, I found a lot of joy and fun and entertainment out of overcoming him with just the sword, without summons, without all these other buffers. I chose to do that in my first playthrough. In this playthrough, I'm finding a lot of fun out of just using the sword. And that's the thing with boss design. Margit the Fell Omen works because he's not just a giant hunk of health so that the game can say that it's hard. He's part of the story, he's part of the overall experience that makes the game better by his sheer inclusion. He teaches you implicitly through the gameplay and through your grind and your challenge to overcome Margit. Not with a bunch of text walls. You don't have to look up a guide or anything. You just have to pay attention and focus on getting better and getting good and how you want to overcome this challenge. There are easier ways, there are harder ways. Just so long as you get through it, Margit the Fell Omen will teach you how to do so. And he'll teach you the lessons that you have to learn and internalize for the rest of the game. He's a great summation and distillation of the themes, the gameplay style, and just the feel of Elden Ring. And that's why he serves as such a great introductory experience. And that's how boss fights can really work and shine, whereas a lot of other games just have them be sacks of health, or just these one-dimensional time wasters that are meant to be a glorified cutscene instead of an engaging part of the actual experience that adds to the overall time, that adds to your overall experience, becomes memorable, not just for how showcasey or flashy it is, but because he's enjoyable and engaging gameplay-wise. He doesn't feel like a waste of time, or like some buffer before I can get to another cool part of the story or whatever. The grind to overcome Margit the Fell Omen is fun and enjoyable, and that feeling when you eventually get him down with whatever build you chose to tackle him with feels so good. And once you overcome that challenge and you get through that wall, you are now ready to tackle the rest of the game. You're not only rewarded for your efforts in terms of being given currency or a new great soul or whatever, you overcame an engaging challenge and an engaging experience all of its own, and are now ready to tackle whatever the game has to throw at you. Because the game has trained you, and you've trained yourself to be in the mindset to identify how to get better from here on out. This was that first step on the marathon. And oftentimes, taking that first step can be the hardest challenge of them all. But once you take it, you can then go on to those showcasey fights or those culminating fights later on. And those fights can have their own strengths, because they fulfill a role. They don't feel separate to the overall experience, they flow into one another. And when boss fights feel like they are a part of a greater whole, they aren't just stupid, arbitrary difficulty for the sake of being hard or challenging. They make sense, they flow, they feel fair, they feel multidimensional, and feel like valid, intrinsic, integral parts of the overall experience. That's the hallmark of a great boss in my design, or my idea. And with that, I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in, my pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Leave a comment down below with your favorite fight in Elden Ring, or your favorite boss fight of all time. I'd love to hear your thoughts and hear your opinions. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and to hit the bell icon to be notified for when I upload and stream in the future. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.